You step into an elevator, the doors close, and almost without thinking, you glance at yourself in the mirror. Maybe you fix your hair, maybe you check your teeth, maybe you just stare blankly for a second before looking away, slightly embarrassed for no reason at all. You've done it hundreds of times. Everyone has. But here is something nobody ever stops to ask. Why is that mirror even there? It wasn't always. Elevators existed for decades without them, and the reason mirrors ended up on those walls has absolutely nothing to do with vanity or decoration. It has everything to do with the way the human mind begins to fall apart inside small enclosed spaces, and one surprisingly simple trick that turned out to fix it completely. To understand why the mirror is there, you first need to understand the problem it was built to solve. When elevators became widespread in the early 20th century, spreading rapidly through office buildings, department stores, and grand hotels, something completely unexpected happened. People hated them. Not because they were mechanically dangerous. That problem had already been solved decades earlier. In 1852, a man named Elisha Otis demonstrated his safety brake at the Crystal Palace Exposition in New York. He rode a platform high into the air, then had the rope cut in front of the entire crowd. The platform barely moved. The safety mechanism held. The audience was stunned. From that moment on, the mechanical danger of elevators was effectively over. But the psychological danger had barely begun. Riders in early elevators felt profoundly uncomfortable, trapped, claustrophobic, cut off from the world. A small metal box, moving in silence, with no windows, no view of the outside, and no sense of how long the journey would last. For many people, even a ride of 30 seconds felt genuinely unbearable. Building managers started receiving complaints. Workers began taking the stairs instead, even to the upper floors. Something had to be done, not to make elevators safer, but to make them feel safer. Engineers and building owners tried everything they could think of. They piped in music to fill the silence. They improved the lighting to make the space feel less oppressive. They invested in faster motors to shorten the ride. Some buildings even hired elevator operators, a real person standing inside, pressing buttons and making small talk, just to prevent passengers from feeling alone. None of it worked well enough. The discomfort persisted. Then someone proposed a remarkably simple idea. What if the walls weren't walls anymore? What if you installed mirrors, large floor-to-ceiling mirrors, that made the tiny box feel open and spacious? And more importantly, gave riders something to look at, something to focus on, something that pulled their attention away from the fact that they were standing completely still in a sealed metal container suspended in the air by cables. Mirrors were installed, and almost immediately, the complaints dropped away, not because the elevator had gotten faster, not because it had gotten quieter or more comfortable in any physical sense, but because the mirror had given people's minds something to do. When you look at your own reflection, your brain shifts its attention entirely. You are no longer thinking about the walls, the silence, or the height. You are thinking about yourself, your hair, your expression, your posture. That mental shift, as small as it sounds, is enough to break the anxiety loop completely. But here is where the story gets genuinely fascinating. Years later, when psychologists began studying the phenomenon more carefully, they discovered something that nobody had anticipated. The mirror was not just distracting people from their anxiety. It was actually changing how long they believed the ride had taken. In studies where elevator riders were timed and then asked to estimate their journey, those in mirrored elevators consistently reported shorter perceived times than those in identical elevators without mirrors. The same 30-second ride felt like 15 seconds. The mirror had not made the elevator faster. It had made time itself feel faster. And this discovery quietly spread far beyond the world of elevators. It is why the corridors of hotels are often lined with mirrors near the lift lobby. Why some waiting rooms and airport gates have them positioned near seating areas. Why gyms cover their walls entirely in glass, not just so you can check your form, but because a mirrored room feels more spacious and time inside it passes more quickly. Anywhere humans are forced to wait, to be still, or to exist in a confined space, mirrors reduce the psychological weight of that confinement. The reflection looking back at you is not a design choice made by an architect who liked the way they looked. It is an engineering solution, a precise, tested, and deliberate response to one of the oldest challenges in human psychology, the unbearable feeling of doing nothing and going nowhere. So the next time you step into an elevator and catch yourself staring at your own reflection, straightening your collar, checking your expression, watching the doors, you are not being vain. You are not being distracted. You are being managed. Quietly, precisely, and completely without your knowledge, by a solution that has been working for over a century. That is what Common Wonders Revealed is here for. The ordinary things around you are never as simple as they appear. There is always a story, a reason, a moment in history where someone solved a problem you never even knew existed. If this changed the way you look at something you have seen 1,000 times before, hit like and subscribe, because we are just getting started.